I'm doing my eye makeup first today. I don't know who I am or what I'm doing. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Crue Trime. Yes, hello. Crue Trime, yes. Crue Trime. My name is Sarah and I am here today to tell you a terrible story, to ruin your day, and do my makeup at the same time. Yes, it's weird. Yes, we like it. We're weirdos. So we're going into the holiday season, and you know what, fellow citizens? We could use a pick-me-up. Am I right? So I mentioned last week that I wanted to feature more survival stories, or at least ones that have a relatively happy ending. And that's not to say that these stories are going to be all puppies and candy canes. Actually, I got to thinking that some of these stories that I'm finding, these survival stories with happy endings, are like more terrible than some of the others. But you know what? You tell me. All that said, let's get into it. This is the story of Teka Adams. I don't really talk about the makeup that I'm using as I'm using it, so if you want to know what it is, look down in the description box, because it's all linked. 29-year-old Teka Adams was way down on her luck. She'd been estranged from her family for most of her life. She ran away from home at age 16 and never went back. She was living wild, you know, staying with friends when she could, couch surfing, doing what she needed to do to get by. And now she's like nearly 30 years old. She's tired of it, and she finally decided it was time to get her life together. She was ready to settle down, get serious about life, and around this time she had also found a very caring man that was like-minded. His name was PJ. He had a very similar background, you know, estranged from family, rough upbringing, but he was also ready to grow the hell up. But as much as they wanted to get their life together, they had a long way to go. You know, they were both living in a shelter, but they were motivated, is the point. Well, pretty soon into their relationship, Tika fell pregnant. You know, this wasn't bad news for them. They were excited. Anyway, Tika and PJ were excited. They were really motivated to kickstart their life, and they even planned to get married. So now it's the fall of 2009, and Tika was nearly 8 months pregnant. Like I mentioned, she was living in a shelter in Southeast Washington, D.C. The shelter was for pregnant women, and she started to get phone calls from a phone number that she didn't recognize. When she finally answered, the woman on the other end was very friendly, and her name was Stephanie Mills. She explained that she worked for a social program who helped people like her, pregnant women that were in need. Stephanie said that the program had a whole stash of baby items, like clothes and diapers and car seats and whatever. And all Tika had to do was to drop by their storage location in Suitland, Maryland, and she could pick up whatever she wanted. So Suitland is actually a suburb of Washington, D.C. in Prince George's County, Maryland, which is close by. Everything's close by. So Tika was pumped. She really needed these supplies, and she was feeling so hopeful that somebody finally cared about her and wanted to help. I mean, finally, she was catching a break. But Tika's man, PJ, wasn't so sure. You know, he was squinting. First of all, how'd they get your phone number? Who is this person, this stranger, that it's too good to be true? You know what I'm saying? Basically, he was telling Tika that she needed to be cautious, you know, careful. This is a stranger. You don't know what their motivations are.
You cannot trust anybody.
Well, Tika felt really comfortable with this woman, Stephanie. She had a really good feeling about it, basically. She and Stephanie actually spoke on the phone quite often, and Stephanie was very generous with her support, offering advice, checking in to make sure that Tika was going to her medical appointments, just being a caring presence, which is not something that she was used to, you know, aside from PJ, of course. So by early December, Tika was approaching her due date, and Stephanie wanted to make sure that she had all of the items that she needed for the baby's arrival. And she reminded her about these baby supplies that the program had waiting for her. Well, I look insane without eyebrows doing this eye makeup. Look like Julia Fox.
Uncut job.
Right.
So on December 2nd, 2009, Tika went with Stephanie out to this baby storage program place. Stephanie picked her up at the shelter and they drove out to Maryland. They were having a really great conversation, talking about, Tika's plans for the future, raising the baby, getting her life together. A really great, uplifting, supportive kind of conversation, and Tika felt really safe with her. Well, as they were driving along, Stephanie's car started to make kind of like a funny noise, so she got nervous about the possibility of them maybe getting stranded on this drive, and she didn't want to do that, but she told Tika, I have a mechanic friend, so why don't we just pop by my apartment? We're actually not far from it, and I can call him, he can come out, take a look at the car, and then we can be on our way. And it was early enough in the day that Tika was like, okay, sure. No problem. So now they are at Stephanie's apartment. They're just sort of like waiting for this mechanic situation to be resolved. Stephanie invited Tika to kind of get comfortable. Take your shoes off, chill out. She put on some movies for them to watch. And right about that time, Tika's boyfriend PJ called. Where are you? And Tika's like, I'm fine. I'm fine. Relax. She couldn't really tell him where she was because she didn't know. So after the phone call with PJ, Tika's suspicion started to raise, I guess rubbing off on her from him. She just kind of started doing the math, like, okay, we've been here for a while, and where's this mechanic? I haven't even seen her make a phone call about it yet. So they're sitting there, they're watching a movie, and then Stephanie puts on a second movie. And now Tika's like, wait a second. So they're sitting there watching this second movie, and then all of a sudden, Stephanie takes a quilt and throws it over Tika's head and starts like beating her over the head. Tika is like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? Like, she's fighting back, but meanwhile, she's getting hit over the head a lot. She feels her head is like hurt badly, like it's bleeding. And she gets up as best she can. She's hugely pregnant. She ran out of the room towards the front door, but the front door was like triple locked, like deadbolt, chain. You get what I'm saying? So she's like standing there fumbling with this lock, trying to escape this apartment. And then before you know it, Stephanie's run up behind her and has jumped on her back, crazed. She's attacking her. She's trying to like cover her mouth. And then the next thing you know, they're like on the floor wrestling and they're strangling each other. It's just like a scene. Well, then Stephanie got a hold of a fireplace poker, like a wrought iron fireplace poker, and is beating the shit out of Tika with it. Pretty soon, Tika blacked out. Okay, so now Tika wakes up. She's on the floor of the apartment, and Stephanie is like dragging her down the hallway toward the kitchen, and it's leaving a trail of blood from this wound on her head. Stephanie, at this point, started to panic a little. I guess that's the best way to describe it. She was like pacing around, worried about her son coming home and seeing this mess and her not being able to explain it. I mean, obviously. So then she started to clean up the blood from the walls and the floor of the apartment, and then she dragged Tika into a back bedroom. By this time, PJ is calling Tika again. Well, we can presume it's PJ. Tika never was able to get up to get her phone because she's injured. She's lying on the floor, but the phone is ringing. Stephanie went into the room, got the phone, brought it in, and then smashed it in front of Tika. Like, you're not answering any phone calls today. Oh, let me back it up just a little bit. Before Stephanie dragged her to this back bedroom, they're in the kitchen, right? And Tika heard Stephanie like rattling around in the drawers, the kitchen drawers and cabinets. And then she knelt down next to Tika. She had a box cutter. Then Tika felt a sharp pain on her right side. Stephanie cut her with the box cutter. I mean, at this point now, Tika's mind is racing, if it wasn't already. She doesn't know where she is. She can't call for help. She's weak. She's big as a house pregnant. This woman is acting crazy, and if she's gonna get out of this, she's just gonna have to like play along. You know what I mean? She's in no physical condition to continue fighting with this woman who, by the way, outweighed her by like a solid 100 pounds. Also, she's still bleeding from the head from being hit with a fireplace poker. Stephanie insisted that Tika go get in the shower. Weird. She took Tika to the bathroom, put her in the tub, and was like washing her, which is so weird. She also clipped Tika's fingernails. She explained that during that little altercation, the wrestling match they had, Tika had scratched her. So that means that Stephanie's DNA was under her fingernails, and she couldn't have that. And it's like, Stephanie, do you think that your DNA maybe being under Tika's fingernails is the biggest problem that you have right now? Like, what a weirdo. All right, then after this supremely strange bath time, Tika was now in this back bedroom. And by now, she's been missing for like 9 hours, and PJ is freaking out. First of all, he can't get a hold of her. You know, he's been calling, and she won't pick up. And then she's any second gonna have this baby. So he starts calling around to area hospitals looking for her. I need to put on eyebrows before I go one step further because I look crazy. So now Tika is set up in the back bedroom and Stephanie's playing movies for her to keep her calm and quiet, I guess. And now it's the evening and Stephanie's 17-year-old son came home. He shows up in the room and he's just like staring at Tika and she's afraid. Like, now what? Like, is he gonna assault me too? Like, what's going on? He just like stood there and stared at her, did not speak a word. It became pretty clear that, you know, maybe the lights were not all on, if you know what I'm saying. Then Stephanie told her son to hold Tika's wrists down so she could tie her up. So now Tika is restrained in the room and then Stephanie left and then came back. Stephanie was carrying a large metal bowl, like a kitchen bowl. It was filled with ice and a rag. Then she had another rag across her shoulder and about 6 towels. And then she also had 2 box cutters, a pair of scissors, and a knife. She took a rag, stuffed it in Tika's mouth, and then duct taped across her mouth and like around her head a couple times to keep it in place. Then she put on a movie and turned the volume way up. Stephanie told Tika, quote, "You're strong. You can handle what I'm about to do to you."
Don't like that.
Then she started cutting. Remember, Tika is fully conscious. I mean, she's weak and probably hungry and definitely has lost blood from this head injury, but she's totally awake, feeling all the things. Stephanie started a makeshift home cesarean. This is horrifying. This is horrifying, you guys. She was using this box cutter to cut Tika's belly open. And any attempt that Tika made to like move or wiggle away, squirm away, was met with excruciating blinding pain. She couldn't move, so she just laid there, waiting to essentially bleed out while this monster hacked her open to steal her baby. This was not a fast process. The woman obviously didn't know what the hell she was doing, medically speaking. She was very slowly like picking through the layers of Tika's body, like skin, dermis, muscle, whatever the layers are. Not a doctor. Presumably to like not cut the baby accidentally. God. When she got to what she thought was Tika's amniotic sac, she cut that, but it was Tika's bladder. Tika eventually passed out. So, spoiler, Stephanie never found the baby. I mean, she was obviously very pregnant with an actual human baby inside her body, but Stephanie didn't know what she was doing and she was just making a mess. So she just gave up. Tika woke up the next morning. The sun had come up. The apartment was quiet. So she's looking around. She sees Stephanie kind of like lying on the floor, sort of in the fetal position, like right outside the door to the room. Remember, she's got duct tape on her mouth and her hands are tied up. So she's like working all of that off. She gets the restraints off. She gets the duct tape off of her face. And now she's like, how the fuck do I get out of here? So with literally all the strength she could muster, she pulled herself up onto her hands and knees, slowly, silently. She tiptoed down the hall toward the front door, but when she was midway down the hallway, her insides fell out of her body. Can you imagine? So now Tika is holding her stomach and entrails, steadying herself on the wall, trying not to pass out, and gets to the door. She sees Stephanie's weird son sleeping on the couch. She's like, oh my God, don't wake up, don't wake up. She's terrified that any second Stephanie's gonna come up behind her, attack her, kill her. Who knows? Our girl got the door open. She stepped outside into the sunlight, and once she got to the backside of the apartment, she started screaming, banging on doors. She's just desperate. And then she collapsed on the stairs. At some point, Stephanie did wake up and found Tika on the stairs, and she quickly was trying to get her back inside, right? She like puts her arms up underneath Tika's arms to kind of like fireman drag her back into the apartment. She's also trying to like cover her mouth to keep her from screaming, which she was. Nobody was outside, by the way. Nobody. Finally, the neighbor from upstairs comes outside to like see what the ruckus is. So Tika is screaming and kicking at Stephanie, and Stephanie is yelling over the top of her that Tika is crazy. She's just had a miscarriage and she's trying to help her, but she's having a breakdown, an episode of some kind. And the neighbor was like, what the fuck? He finally saw the blood and literal guts and was like, calling the police. So he ran upstairs and pretty soon, sirens. Meanwhile, Stephanie and her son ran off. So a swarm of EMTs and firemen and first responders arrived at the apartment and they found Tika on the stairwell. She woke up a little while later in a hospital room that was filled with flowers and balloons from the staff, and also bags and bags of baby clothes and supplies that were donated, gifted to her from the first responders who had rescued her. Her boyfriend, PJ, was there. A nurse later came in and told Tika that her baby was fine. She had successfully and properly delivered an 8-pound baby girl, perfectly healthy. The baby apparently had been sitting up pretty high in Tika's belly, and the positioning is what kept the baby safe after Tika's abdomen was sliced open. Tika's abdominal muscles had been so jacked up during this 3-day ordeal. Did I mention this? She was trapped in that apartment for like 3 days going through this crap. Anyways, her body was so horrifically, traumatically injured that she had to use a catheter to urinate, and she couldn't walk. She had no strength. So PJ would wheel her down the hallway in a wheelchair to go visit their baby that they named Miracle Sky. So while Tika was recovering, police detectives showed up and interviewed her and got the shocking and gruesome story of what had happened to her. They also showed her a lineup, and Tika very quickly identified Stephanie and told them, that's her. Stephanie, she did this to me. What Tika didn't know at that time was that a few hours after she was rescued from Stephanie's apartment, Stephanie actually called and surrendered herself to the authorities in Arlington, Virginia. And surprise, surprise, her name was not Stephanie. She was really a 40-year-old Army veteran and mother of 4 named Veronica Doremus. Veronica had previously served some time in jail for forgery and identity theft. She was arrested and charged with attempted first-degree murder and false imprisonment of Teka Adams, among some other assault charges. The attempted murder charge ended up falling off because there wasn't really evidence of her trying to kill Tika. In fact, she kept her alive so that she could steal her baby.
A what now?
Veronica's son didn't face any criminal charges because the police believed that he didn't have enough mental capacity to understand what was going on in that apartment. It turns out that in the months leading up to Tika's attack, Veronica had convinced her entire family and friends that she was pregnant. Somebody in Tika's situation, homeless, broke, troubled past, etc., would be an easy target for her to use to get what she was after. I mean, never mind that the entire scheme was just like harebrained and stupid. Like, what did she think that Tika was gonna do after she got the baby out? Thanks, bye, and just leave? What if she died? What was she gonna do with the body? Like, so Veronica ended up entering into a plea agreement. She pled guilty to first-degree assault and then took an Alford plea for the false imprisonment charge. And an Alford plea is one where the accused person maintains their innocence of the crime, but they plead guilty and accepts the sentence. Legal gymnastics, I don't know. At the trial, Veronica took the stand and read from a prepared statement to the court and explained that she and Tika met at a bar and became friends. Tika was the one that came up with this plan to essentially sell her baby to Stephanie, nope, not Stephanie, Veronica, for $5,000. And also Veronica would perform consensually a cesarean section to get the baby out. She said that she paid Tika the $5,000 in advance, in full, and when the time came to deliver the baby, Veronica picked up Tika and was driving her back to her home to do the home surgery, and Tika told her that she'd already spent the $5,000 and she wasn't going to give her anything. So the only reason that Veronica tied her up was to keep her from taking her money. She also said that after the deal kind of fell apart, she started drinking and doesn't remember anything about trying to cut the baby out of Tika's body. What? Obviously, there's no record of payments or proof that they met prior to November, December 2009, and the rest of that story is just batshit bananas. Tika was actually in the courtroom gallery that day with her 10-month-old daughter, Miracle. When Veronica testified to that bullshit story, Tika was so incensed that she jumped out of her seat, over the wall, and tried to attack her right there in court. Tika's father was there and had to tackle her to the ground like a football player. In November 2010, so nearly a year after Tika's brutal attack, Daramas's plea agreement was accepted and she was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. She was later remitted to the Maryland Correctional Institution for Women in Jessup, Maryland. Since the horrific attack, Teka Adams has made a miraculous recovery, but she was told that she wouldn't be able to carry a pregnancy again in the future. And in early 2024, so just a few months ago, Veronica Daramas was released on parole after serving a total of 14 years in prison. She now goes by the name Amina and is a devout Muslim. She recognizes that what she did to Teka Adams was monstrous, but she believes that she has paid her debt to society. And that is the story of Teka Adams. I'm telling you, I think the survival stories might be worse than some of the others. Hot take. Anyways, if you want to know any of the makeup that I used in today's look, then look down in the description box. Everything is linked. If something's not available for some reason or whatever, I'll find you something similar. If you have a Crue Trime story that you want to recommend to me, please look down in the description box for the link to the Google Doc where you can share all the terrible details. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for hanging out today and for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you want to see more videos like this one, then consider subscribing to this channel before you leave today. I upload new videos here on YouTube every week, and you can follow me on all of the other socials as well. That is it for now. I will catch you next time in the next video. Bye! I have the microphone in a different location today. I'm not sure if it's too close. Is it too close? Is it too far? Oh my God, I need to get it together. December of, nope, fuck, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And Tyler's pulling into the garage. Can you hear it?